Hey, John Gilroy here. Today, we're going to interview a company that was founded back in 1993. They didn't talk about data back then in petabytes. They barely talked about data in megabytes. Hit the music, Manny. Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, the podcast that connects you to federal technology leaders. My name is John Gilroy, and I will be your moderator. Our guest today is world-famous Andrew Churchill, Vice President, Public Sector, Qlik, Qlik. Round of applause. You got your paparazzi there, Andrew, and everyone else?
Yeah, I got the pit bull standing behind me.
Yeah, that's as good as any paparazzi. I remember back in 1993, you were probably in high school or something, but, you have floppy disks, you're worried about megabyte here, a megabyte there, and then the big, drug-induced stupor, you think about 100 megabytes, and that was what, don't even think about that. And all of a sudden now, today, look around, we're talking about petabytes of data, and you combine all this data with artificial intelligence. And so what some people will argue is that, this is a bunch of junk. How can you have good AI unless you have good data? And I thought we'd drag you back into the studio and talk about Qlik and data integrity, and talk about using data as a solid foundation for artificial intelligence. Sound like a good topic?
Absolutely. It's our favorite, John.
Yeah, I'll bet. So were you in high school in 93? Where are you in 93?
Don, I graduated college in 1994, and my very first job was at Falcon Microsystems, and I was selling 1 megabyte chips.
Whoa, megabyte. Yeah, that's a big deal there, wasn't it?
On the telephone to federal government agencies. So, yeah, it's come a long way. In fact, the hallmark moment for Qlik's growth path was the advent of 64-bit computing, because that allowed for, this massive new opportunity of big data at the point, which was probably still, 10 meg data sets was considered a big deal. So
back in the day, there's a gentleman who was active back in the day named David Linthicum. And he's a great guy. I love David. He's written books and he's helped me out so many times over the years. And I love his quote when it comes to AI and data. He goes, yeah, the reason you got stupid AI is because you got stupid data. So maybe Qlik could make a T-shirt out of that or something, because this is the point. I mean, hey, everyone's talking this about AI and that about AI, and Andrew's in the back of the room raising his hand going, what about the quality of the stuff going in? Maybe that'd be an impact. So talk about that, and where's Qlik stand in that position?
So, Qlik has been building out our platform. We started out as a BI and analytics company in 1993, as you noted, and through multiple acquisitions, most recently of talent. We've built a set of capabilities that help our customers really get their data house in order as they embark on this AI journey. I think one of the biggest concerns that leaders have is trying to understand their data environment. Not only, is it good enough to fuel AI decisions, but also what's in that data set? Do I have, PII information that I need to guard and make sure that we are, only allowing the right AI systems that are positioned to the people that should have access? So that data house in order is really, kind of building that bedrock to build that skyscraper. AI is a long game. The majority of the AI initiatives are very exploratory right now in the federal government and in public sector in general. And, we're seeing a huge amount of interest in one, profiling the data, saying, what do I have? Governing the data, classifying it based on its contents, and then making it discoverable and usable, but also understanding what those use cases are that are going to tap into it.
Andrew, I wrote down data house, and I thought of my little house here. You got a front door, you got a back door, you got a couple rooms, and maybe a kitchen, and it's going to be pretty much the same house for the next 4 or 5 years. But when it comes to data, it's like, no. I mean, there's always data coming in. There's remote sensors. There's feds at the edge. There's people, satellites bringing out information. People walking in the front door with a bucket of information. So it's changing all the time. We have data movement. And so I think one concern I would have if I were a federal leader is about, okay, so let's say we have our data house in order. Okay, well, now how do you protect the stuff that's coming in every day? And they have concerns about, encryption and exfiltration, don't they?
Absolutely. And, I think we're seeing, an evolution of the approach to that. So, you had a physical aggregation of data being when you mentioned David Linthicum, he had big in data warehousing and
Yeah.
there, data warehousing's evolved quite a bit. I mean, you brought data together to act on it with BI and analytics, and you curated that data very heavily. There's a bit of a push back towards, data fabrics and data mesh, leaving data in the systems where they should reside and creating sort of abstraction layers, data products, these semantic tiers that allow these things to be consumed. But often that's being fueled by these initiatives of let's protect the data. If I can protect it in one place, I've got John's personal information. I got to protect John's personal information. I'm going to keep it here where I need it for the system that primarily uses it. So being able to do that and actually still expose that in the right ways to AI use cases is going to be exceptionally important. These are the sort of evolving trends that we're seeing, and the big partners of ours, AWS, Databricks, and Snowflake, being able to sit in the middle and physically aggregate where it makes sense and provide those data mesh, data fabric approaches where those are the preferred, architectures that organizations want to use.
I think of peak loads and go back to a data house here. On Halloween, we had a peak load for a front porch. Kids knocking on the door, and we kind of expected that. And so with a federal agency, they must have peak loads as well. And managing that, it's okay, you got your house in order, but did you anticipate this? And so what about these peak loads and especially with IoT applications coming in? And I'm sure FEMA had some peak loads in the last couple months, haven't they?
Yeah, so I mean, fit for purpose is sort of the design principle that's there, and that is going back to that the idea of aggregating data. You're pulling it out of the transactional systems that aren't going to be hit by that AI use case, by that particular peak load use case. Those are always going to be things that that the agencies need to support. When we look at data movement, our biggest strength is the ability to project data to where it should be. So think about, the evolution that we've gone through over the last 20 years from mainframe and largely on-premise to, largely in the cloud. And on into multi-cloud, and the shift over time, whether it be based on a contract award or a system being re-engineered, being able to move that data around in a governed, auditable type of way, making that data available where it should be for any number of reasons. It's a true strength of what we do, and I think it's only going to become more important as AI hits its pace. I mean, the pace of innovation is going to be fueled by the opportunity with those technologies, but also the efficiencies that those technologies create. Low code, no code is truly a real thing now. AI is providing so much support for whether that's the pro developer or the novice, engineer to be able to go and create data pipelines or AI capabilities at a speed that we've never been able to imagine.
I like fun facts, and I'm going to toss out a fun fact here for you. One of the local companies in town did a survey of federal managers, and they found out that 70% of federal managers are concerned with data security. Whew. That's probably equivalent to banks or insurance companies, but probably not Joe's Donuts in Chicago or, whatever car repair place in Boston. But so data security's got to be part of this, especially with our audience, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the people's data. I mean, you're in I think data security is a top concern for any IT leader or any, leader of any large enterprise. But in the public sector, you have the people's data. You're stewarding assets that really belong to the public, and so you have an extra layer of responsibility added. And also, we have a lot of data that a lot of bad actors want to get their hands on, in the federal community. So assuring that is safe and governed is really important. It's also, really important that data, is understood and that its use, whether that's, protecting it from, exfiltration or from use being applied to use cases that have not been approved, I think is one of the big concerns too. there's a number of studies that have come out that, talk about definitely sub 25% of organizations believing that they've got their arms around, that particular need. So there's a lot of work to be done to secure that data and truly, again, get it ready for this next generation of use.
Andrew, earlier this year, I was at AWS Public Sector Summit, me and 25,000 of my closest friends. And like earlier in this interview, you mentioned working with AWS. And so I guess you guys going to go to this big whoop-de-doo thing in Las Vegas in December. What's that called anyway?
Reinvent. I will be there. I think it's my fourth straight year. 60,000 of me and my close
Whoa.
friends in Las Vegas, the very first week of December, right after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, it is such an incredible event, as overwhelming as it is to try to navigate around the halls. The ecosystem that is there is just miraculous. The value, the potential value it represents to the public sector, IT executive trying to deliver next generation capabilities is remarkable. Our partnership with them goes back to the beginning of our cloud platform. Our SaaS offerings, FedRAMP authorized run in their Gov Cloud West region. And we have continued to build on the assets that they deliver there. Most recently leveraging their Amazon Bedrock capabilities to support our Gen AI offering that we launched earlier this summer called Qlik Answers. We've been working with them on some of our biggest, enterprise accounts throughout the federal government and in the broader public sector. And, even when it comes down to the most basic things of freeing data from silos, getting it into low cost storage like S3 and allowing them to then provision and, propel that data forward to support so many different use cases that are, powered by their ecosystem. It is more than just what AWS itself produces. It's all of the technology that exists there in this cloud framework.
Early in the interview, you mentioned AWS. You also kind of casually mentioned a company called Talend, Talend, and there may be listeners that maybe had an experience with Talend in the past and didn't know who
Yeah.
owns what. Or tell me about Talend and how does this 1+1 is 3, or how does this all work?
Yeah, so about 18 months ago, so it was June of last year, we acquired Talend. We announced it in January of 2023 that we were moving forward to acquire Talend. Talend is a leader in the data integration space. They provide ETL or ELT technology, which is that technology that takes a set of data from one system or one file and transforms it to be able to fit into a warehouse that's running in AWS or Snowflake, or deliver it to a data lake in a product like Databricks. And really do that at scale. It is a low code, no code, platform that accelerates the, delivery of those data pipelines and addresses so many of the data management issues in flight. How do I improve my data quality? How do I, profile my data and govern my data? Maybe mask some of my data along the way to make sure that I don't, have more sets of John's personal data to be able to protect where it's not necessary for analysis. Together, the technologies really are building that foundation of what is formed into our data business unit that is all about, freeing data from the silos, trusting that data by understanding what's in it, and really, governing that data in the process of delivering it to n number of locations.
Well, if you go over to Gartner and look around for Talend and look for you guys, I mean, there's a lot of activity there over the last few years, aren't there?
Oh, it's a hot space for sure. I mean, data management, same things we just talked about, John. There are so many needs at the enterprise data level to be able to better manage data, better prepare it for use, better provision it, make it accessible. It's been a great acquisition for us and something that we're just continued to build on through other bolt-ons, as well as just taking the assets that we already have and combining them, building new capabilities to really accelerate our customers' success with AI, data, and cloud.
Back when you were in high school many years ago, you probably read Shakespeare. He has this phrase, trippingly on the tongue, and I think if people are listening to this podcast and they heard you kind of refer to a data house and then a data lake and data warehouse, really very, I mean, something's very, very comfortable with it. It's like I guess it's like a mechanic going to 9/16 wrench and this tool and that kind of a tool. So perhaps for some of our newer listeners, you can differentiate between data lakes and data warehouses and how they apply for the federal government.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, a data warehouse is typically a highly structured environment. It's the place that you tend to put data that supports the questions you know you're going to ask. So, it's often the home of your financial data because that data is heavily curated, very standardized, and the types of questions you are going to ask are known to you. Data lakes are where you're going to put all sorts of data with untold and unknown numbers of use cases that you're going to do. And this is where, Gen AI and data science come together. What's really interesting is that, you've really seen the lines blur between data lake and data warehouse. The vendors that began as data lake providers began to build SQL warehouse capability. The folks that were in the warehouse business began to deliver data lake capability. So they tend to be side by side, and they tend to be able to support, again, highly structured, curated data sets for certain use cases and, a unknown set of use cases in the data lake scenario. Our technology really doesn't differentiate. If I'm reading data from transactions, I can be supporting that highly structured delivery to a highly structured data model, and I can be literally dumping data on the doorstep of that data lake just for it to be able to sit there, again, in an S3 bucket or at a bronze medallion level is a term of not really curated all the way up to the top. But automating that process and, again, just projecting it to the point where it's needed has been something that has really had our customers, working with us with great success.
Data curation, there's all kinds of concepts that are associated with that. So when we think about curating data, I guess we're talking about data cleaning, profiling, maybe tagging or lineage tracking. Is that what we're talking about?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the most basic stuff, so if you're curating data, you might be transforming it to standardize on it. So imagine you're pulling from 3 different systems and they store date in 3 different ways, or address in 3 different ways, your social or your credit card number in 3 different ways. So I now want to standardize that in one way. Then I've got data quality, which is everything from, conforming and accuracy. John cannot possibly be 186 years old. That is not true. He is a young man at 18 years old. That's an absolute truth. So those types of rules, being able to apply rules broadly and assess the data quality challenges. I may have missing fields. I may have mismatches between a zip code and a state. These are the types of data issues that you deal with data quality. This one, John, data quality to me is one of the most persistent challenges in the data space. I've been selling data quality solutions for almost 20 years. And I hate to say it, but I don't feel like we in industry have helped make much of a dent. And it's not because the technology wasn't good. There's a cultural change that needs to occur, which is more people that are business subject matter experts that understand the data are going to need to get involved. So those technologies that allow stewards, non-technical people, to come in and sit there and say, this is good, that is bad, this is good, that is bad, change this to that. These are the types of platforms that are required. And again, low code, no code, such a popular phrase that really presents a business type of interface to a business type of user and engages them in the process of curating that data towards an end result. We got a whole new set of problems coming in, John, with Gen AI, because Gen AI is focused on unstructured data. 80% of the public sector's data is unstructured. It sits in documents, in call center notes, in case files. And now trying to take that data and assess its quality, validity, and then do the things that have to be prepared for it to be consumed by Gen AI. There are people a million times smarter than me that tried to explain these concepts of vectoring and chunking and all these things. There's a guy that it was the founder of the company we acquired that is the sort of foundation of this Qlik Answers technology. He's been doing natural language processing technology for 10 years and Gen AI for 5. And I said, that's amazing. I thought ChatGPT was the beginning of it all. And, I was worried about when my kids were in college that they were going to use it inappropriately. But it is here, and it's a whole nother set of this problem space is, getting that data ready.
We talked about data quality. We started off this conversation talking about a solid data foundation kind of unifies it all. I'm going to have you get on top of a mountain and look on over a valley and tell me what you see in the next 4 years here. I mean, we've got a lot of changes coming up in the next 6-8 months. What magic predictions do you have, Andrew?
John, we're going to enter one of the most fickle areas, fickle time periods of.
That's a good word.
And we're still in a very exploratory stage. I mean, one of the things that we've been recommending, and what we sort of talk about is the long game of AI, is that you're playing the field, that you're testing multiple use cases, you're working with private Gen AI models and public Gen AI models, that you're engaging as many areas of your business in this stuff as possible. But that is going to create a lot of churn in the space. Most of these things are being delivered as SaaS solutions in the cloud, and that's going to enable government organizations to adopt more quickly and change more quickly. This concept of composable architectures is becoming more and more a reality, with APIs being able to assemble these things together. And also a pace of innovation and acquisition, from some of the biggest platform providers. There's a lot of money floating around out there to acquire and accelerate the delivery of a lot of these things. Every time that I talk to somebody in the space, somehow NVIDIA stock comes up. It's just one of those things that'll tell you how the pace of innovation just being driven by the compute and all of the things that we can do now.
Yeah, and talk to the NVIDIA people, and they say the real problem is nuclear power for data centers, which is a whole separate topic. We're not going to get into that at all. And well, it was an interesting talk here. Thanks for your time here today. You have been listening to the Federal Tech Podcast with John Gilroy. I'd like to thank my guest, Andrew Churchill, Vice President Public Sector at Qlik, Qlik.
Pleasure to be here, John.